everyone. It's me again, Dr. Rufaro, on Nehemiah African Projects. As I always repeat, I like to do a lot of videos on the move because we're all strapped for time, right? We're all strapped for time. But welcome to Nehemiah African Projects. If it's your first time here, please make sure to subscribe, like the video, and definitely share it with anyone you feel may be interested in the topics. Today we're talking about unlocking African investment opportunities. Why diversification matters. So diversification matters a lot in investing, and that's in anything really, whether domestically or abroad. We're going to talk about it, and why we always harp on diversification is, I like to take it even personally in different things that I've looked into, because even as a Christian, the Bible says that Ecclesiastes chapter 11 verse 12 actually says invest in 7 to 8 investments. This is in the Bible, y'all. You can check it out. Invest in 7 to 8 investments. And that's pretty cool wisdom. That's pretty cool godly wisdom, but also practical wisdom that span all ages and throughout all time. It doesn't matter what culture you're from or who you are. That is really good wisdom to apply to any kind of investing that you do, because we always want to manage our risks, right? And so part of managing risk is diversifying. So investing domestically, we diversify. Investing, if you decide to invest outside of the country, diversify. So diversification is kind of the theme of what we're talking about today. But yeah, that's pretty amazing. Invest in 7 to 8 investments. And the way I understand that is, it's not just like, oh, I invest in stocks, so I have at least 7 to 8 investments. No, we're talking about 7 to 8 different types of investments. So stocks is just one type, right? Real estate is another type. You can have all kinds of investments. Business is another type of investment in itself. So that gets me pretty excited because, like we mentioned in some of the previous videos about putting your investor hat on, it kind of changes your mindset a little bit, and that's what we want to talk about here is diversification. So the Bible says we should invest in 7 to 8 investments. And that can include alternative investments. I'm, not against. Some are into cryptocurrency, some are into other alternative investments or precious metals. This is all part of it. It's 7 to 8 types of investments. So not just one type of investment, and you have multiple, which you can do that too, but it's good to have different type of investment vehicles. So real assets, you want traditional investments, stocks, ETFs, bonds. You also want alternative investments. You can do precious metals, you can do real estate, you can do land, which is also part of real assets. You can do farming. So diversification matters, and there's a lot of benefits to that, because the other part of that verse was not just invest in 7 to 8 investments, but it was invest in 7 to 8 investments, for you do not know what disaster may come upon the land. And that's very true. Nobody knows tomorrow. We invest in hopes of a better future, but nobody knows tomorrow. Nobody knows, you can invest in all sorts of stuff and just focus on wealth building, but nobody knows what tomorrow will bring. Nobody knew that COVID was going to happen, right? And so that's why we have to live our life to the fullest, because nothing is promised tomorrow. And if you're to die tomorrow, God forbid, you're not taking any of it with you. Maybe in hopes, if you have family or children, you may be able to leave some generational wealth behind, or an inheritance of some kind. But inheritance goes far beyond just financial wealth or material things. Generational wealth, it can be passed down, can be biblical values, it can be family values, it could be traditions, it can be principles and self-respect, and so many other things that are very valuable, but not necessarily financially monetary things. So diversification has many benefits that are definitely to be noted. And because of those benefits, which is even more reason why to manage the risk. So Nehemiah African Projects, so what's the context with Nehemiah African Projects is that the reason why we are a big proponent of not even just looking at one African country, we're looking at any African country that has really great investment opportunities, is because we want to educate the African diaspora about these opportunities. And that's anybody really. If you just even have an interest in Africa, you don't need to be from the continent or be African American or Caribbean or African. You just need to have an interest, really. There's many people who invest in Asia or Europe, and they're not from there, so but they recognize the opportunity, and so they want to diversify, and that's what we're talking about. So with Nehemiah African Projects, what we are doing is we are doing not only educational research and educating our community, but we are also working to curate opportunities as well, because we don't want to be just reactive. We want to be proactive and be having strategic conversations that help bring about more opportunities for more people, because historically it's not been as easy to just Google something online and be able to say, hey, I found this, I'm going to invest. In the US and in other Western countries, we can easily do that. But thank God for technology. Thank God for investment in infrastructure and so many developing markets in Africa that are allowing more opportunities through different mediums and technology and networks and associations that allow for Nehemiah African Projects to do that work, to have those strategic networks, to connect with people, real people, learn more about their business, verify what they are doing, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in the emerging stock market in different African countries, because a lot of people are not aware of this. They know the New York Stock Exchange, which is great, but there are different African stock exchange in different African countries. There's the Nigerian Stock Exchange, there's the South African Stock Exchange. In fact, there's multiple. Even Zimbabwe has a stock exchange as well. And so it is very fascinating to see the potential growth, again, that then presents these opportunities for, again, the passive investor to invest in. And then also the hybrid investor as well, who wants to invest and then maybe visit maybe once a year or twice a year or that kind of thing. Or the relocation investor who wants to move completely at one point, and it's part of their retirement plan. And when we say retire, it is both in the traditional sense, but also in the sense of a possibility that you don't have to be of retirement age to decide to pursue, relocation and perhaps to decide to live in an African country. There are many benefits to that as well, because the US dollar purchasing power goes a lot further in different African countries, depending on where you are. There are currency fluctuations, but that is part of the education that we do. So let's say if you had a nest egg that, was going to last you, for example's sake, you're still trying to work towards retirement, it's only going to last you 5 years in the US. There's a potential that if you move to an African country, it also depends on the specific country, but that 5-year worth of a nest egg in the US can now take you 15 years or 20 years in another country, even with currency fluctuations, because you are more likely to buy assets early on at a lower price, have it paid off, you don't have a mortgage, and so your overall cost of living is much lower than the typical person who is in the traditional retirement here domestically. So there's so many benefits to that, and that's in the relocation perspective. For the hybrid, again, benefits in diversifying is, again, your dollar is working for you in a different market that perhaps is growing at a faster pace, or sometimes even a slower pace. It just depends on the location and what exactly the investment is. And you're doing that passively. You don't have to always travel there, but Nehemiah African Projects is able to help you reduce some of that risk by bringing you more information for you to do your final due diligence. Okay, so due diligence is always still part of the math equation here. It's part of helping you to manage your risk, because like I said, there's always going to be risk, but there's potentially greater rewards if you can really learn and understand all that you need to do to manage risk. Some things are still going to happen, they're going to be out of your control, but there's still ways to mitigate a lot of that risk, and hence providing you ample rewards. So there's a lot of benefits to that, and how Nehemiah curates. We work with networks, we provide education, and so we bridge that gap between the African diaspora and invest, and let's, for example, say real estate developers, or those that are in these different stock exchanges that we're talking about. How to sign up, where can you even find it? How come I never knew about this? All I knew about was the New York Stock Exchange. And some people have been able to buy penny stocks in different African stock exchanges. And even if you, again, diversification is the key. Let's say you buy 20, out of that 20, 2 or 3 really appreciate at a significant pace. You can see the potential here. Or even if you're just doing buy and hold. And so all of this is how we provide benefit to the African diaspora community, or anyone who's interested in the African investment market that is rapidly growing and developing. And so that's a little bit there about the risks and rewards, and how Nehemiah African Projects curates these investment opportunities. Again, diversification is the key for this video. So again, we hope that you can unlock African investment opportunities, and you'll have a little bit better understanding of why diversification matters. And so even in that context, you want to diversify and not just look at one avenue, but different types of investments. So thank you so much for watching. If you're enjoying this content, planning to bring you a whole lot more, just want to start out with a lot more education before we dig into more specifics. So keep watching, share this video, please like, subscribe down below, and we really appreciate it, as it really helps us grow as we continue this journey, because even I'm on this journey, me and my husband are on this journey, and so we want you all to join us and we all win. And so thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Thank you.